Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our weekly webinar on our Facebook page. I'm Melissa Davids. We have a fantastic lineup today with regards to a lot of our matric students getting prepared for final exams, as well as our grade 11s and 10 students. We find that a lot of them struggle with preparation for exams and obviously getting the support that they need in order for them to actually assist them in preparing for that final exams. And I find it such an important topic to discuss because we tend to focus mostly on the matric students, but if we start focusing from grade 10 and 11, we can impact them from a younger age and actually build up structure for them to actually prepare for any final exams that they will be doing. I'd like to introduce our panel. First of all, we've got Dr. Christopher John. He has a particular skill in helping multilingual learners working in an academic English to prove their marks. He is a Senior Atlantic Fellow for Racial Equity and Fulbright Scholar with over 25 years of working experience in the education and higher education department. Okay. Then we have Paige Riethoven over there. She is our intervention for our English from grade 4 to 11. She's recently started with us as well. And then obviously we have Mr. John Forkwen, the director of SEEDS Academy. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. I'd like to give it over to Dr. John. If you could please start us off.
Okay, hello everyone, and welcome, and it's lovely to be in contact with you. I'd like to ask Abigail if she just put up the first slide, and then I'll carry on. There we go. So I'm Dr. Christopher John, and I deliver support to students in academic English, students and learners in academic English, through a website on teachable.com, which is the matric writing coach, teachable.com, and there it is on the site. And I'm going to be dealing today with exam tips about how to manage that moment when you enter the exam, which is that you need to notice your physical state, acknowledge your nerves. People do feel judged. You need to breathe, relax, and focus. And then you need to work on analyzing the nouns and verbs of the question. And then you're able to identify where to start on the work. And as you start engaging the task, your attention moves away from yourself onto the task at hand. And that's an easy way of managing your nerves. Can I ask Abigail to just move back to the previous slide, which has the Bloom's taxonomy on it? Now, Bloom's taxonomy is used to manage the design of curriculum. So I hope we get the slide. We jumped slides forward, Abigail. So what you have on one side is the thinking processes, and on the other side is the content. And what happens is more often students are learning content, and teachers fold in the academic writing part of the education into the content. So people write for specific subjects or specific content. Now, whilst it's important to command the content that you've been studying, it's also important to understand that your work is assessed on different cognitive levels. So different ways of thinking. So sometimes it's remembering, sometimes it's analyzing, sometimes it's evaluating, and sometimes it's creating. So you create a picture or you create a budget. Sometimes if you're doing a question on business and they're saying, look at the strengths, opportunities, and threats, a SWOT analysis, you're having to analyze information and sort it and evaluate it. If you're doing a literature exam, say it's on Antony and Cleopatra, and it's asking you to compare the Roman and Egyptian worlds, you're having to analyze information, evaluate it, and construct an argument. Now, what I find some students do is they write bullet points of content, and they simply write that content in short bullet points and go, I've covered all the points. And then they don't know why they get a bad mark. It's because they didn't demonstrate the thinking processes that the question required. Sometimes they will write run-on sentences, where if you're doing the SWOT analysis, they'll say, oh, it's about strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And one set is in about internal factors, and the other set is about external factors. And it's all on one sentence, and it should probably be different paragraphs. So if you are, and they haven't demonstrated the thinking, all they've done is demonstrated content. So what are the tools that we use to demonstrate these thinking processes that exams and qualifications ask of it? And the tools are sentence structures, simple sentences, compound sentences, complex sentences, and knowing how to use those structures to organize thinking. And then after that, understanding how to use paragraphs to structure thinking. And university students all over the world come into their first year and they have to learn paragraph writing. So it's not just our context, but multilingual students often have a continuum of English skills. They all vary. Some people speak English and another language at home. Others speak one language at home and another language at school, or English at school. And so you've got these range of English skills, but everyone can learn how to use sentences to structure thinking, and how to use paragraphs to create a template for a response. And most students understand that they have an introduction and a conclusion and a body. But the difficulty is, how do you separate that body into different functioning paragraphs? And all of that is very teachable and very learnable. And you gather those skills during the year at the same time that you're understanding content. Now, when you get to the exam, what you have to do is manage your nerves, as I've said, manage your physical state. You sit down, you're feeling judged often because you know your work's going to be examined and marked, and those nerves are normal. Acknowledge them, breathe, settle yourself physically. You're aware of yourself physically, and you've got a lot of noise in your head. Manage yourself physically. Breathing is a big thing. Being well prepared for the exam is the number one way of coming in with some confidence. And then look at the question and analyze it. The nouns will tell you what the content needs to be. If it's a question, a literature question about Antony and Cleopatra, it could be examine the Roman and Egyptian worlds and compare and contrast them. So the nouns tell you the content. You are creating a business plan, looking at the strengths and weaknesses for a fast food company. Those are the content. Fast food company, strengths and weaknesses. So the nouns tell you the content. And that's what most students pick up on. Go further, look at the verbs. Verbs are doing words, and they tell you what you're supposed to do with the question. So discuss the Roman and Egyptian worlds. That means you've got to analyze the content and evaluate the content and organize it into an argument. Compare and contrast, again, is an evaluation and an analysis. Sometimes they're asking you to apply a particular way of doing something. So pay attention to the verbs and you'll see how to structure your response and organize your thinking. And that is the part most students leave out. So once you know what the verb is, you can now begin the planning of your response. And you can organize the thinking of the response. And a well-argued response, often teachers are saying, Give your answer, motivate it, and explain it. Give your answer, give an example. So those are where you get the demonstration of the thinking. And once you look at the question and you go, there's the nouns, that's the stuff I have to think about. And there's the verb, this is what I have to do about it. You're ready to start making your plan of your short, medium, or long answer. And you're also able to get your starting point. And once your attention moves from yourself to the task, your nerves subside because this noise in your head is distracted. You're now thinking about the task and you're understanding how to work on that task. And I have provided this content on the Matric Writing Coach site at Teachable as a free 15-minute course for Matric students, grade 10, 11 students, their parents. It's my gift to the year class of 2021, because I do acknowledge that it's been a difficult year with COVID and some teaching being disrupted. And I think all of us are stakeholders in education, and we come together at this point of the year to support you, to really support you going into your final end of year exams, and those of you who are into your final Matric exams. So I hope this has been clear and useful, and I've given you a resource where you can go and look to cover it again and to get further insights. And the very best of luck with your exams.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Christopher John. I do apologize. It looks like we had just a bit of technical problems there with presenting your slideshow, but we will be sharing it, the link on our page as well as on our screen as soon as we can sort that out. I'd like to hand over to Paige, please. If you can just please discuss with us, like I said, you just started with our intervention classes for our English. Can you take us through that, please? Paige, you need to unmute yourself.
There we go. Sorry about that. So I started with the intervention classes this week, actually. So they entail extra lessons from grade 4 to 11, as well as workshop classes. We go through the scope of their exams. We detail everything in their scope to their lesson plan, so everything is linked. Therefore, because it's such a short time span, we started it quite late in the year, we want to focus mainly on the exams and the content that is being taught in the exam. So everything is planned out in a way that these next few weeks, their focus is on the assessments and the exams from grade 4 to 11. The workshops entail breaking down the exam questions, how they can analyze them, so that, again, like Dr. John said, they enter the examination room or into the examination period with this idea that it's not as scary as they thought it would be, and their nerves can be calmed. It's all focused on how they look at the question, how they analyze it, that they've practiced enough, not just on going through the material, but also going through past papers. They've looked at enough papers that when they see their own, they're not so shocked, they're not thrown by the structure of it, anything like that. So it's all it's the same content that you would have covered in class, but going that extra mile of having extra resources to look at, being able to ask questions that you may not have time for in your classes. That's kind of what we want to cover. It's also giving them this relaxed time, because it's a longer period than what they usually have in their classroom. It's a 45-minute class. So it's this relaxing time for them to be like, okay, we've got time, we can go through everything. I can feel free to ask questions because that's what this time is for. And they can, there's a chat box, they can talk to their peers and ask questions with their peers, get examples from each other. I'm all about getting in that extra interaction with each other as well, because they're not in a physical setting, but I still want to bring in that peer relationship with them, because I think that's important for their learning as well. So that's roughly what the classes entail. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Paige. I must be honest, if I think back to when I did my matric exams, even grade 10 and 11, if I knew half of what both of you were discussing right now, I think I would have gotten a better mark. I mean, you get into, I sat in my matric class exams, and I'm a very nervous person. So I panic. I literally got sick and I had to run out of the exam room. I mean, that is how anxious I was having to write the exams. And, if I knew these things, if I could prepare myself knowing that, understanding a question and how to analyze a question, I think it would help. I mean, I find the discussion that we're having absolutely phenomenal. And it's such a great feedback that I'm getting, because I'm sure that even now, after school, going into university and those places as well, that you can implement these type of things there as well. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Can I just say, Melissa, that I also teach adults who are doing business degrees, and I've just done their exam question, and they didn't know how to analyze verbs. So the parents can't always help the kids because they don't always know that information. And I think you're quite right that if you can sit down and you know what action to take, you can begin rather than run out of the class because you're overwhelmed by organizing the content. And what I've talked about is so that the learner can go, okay, I'm in this situation now, what do I do? And the moment they can take the first step, the second and third step follow. And I'd just like to say, we all understand going to the gym, that you do an arm curl in a particular way to strengthen the arm. And we use sentences in academic English in a particular way to strengthen the thinking. And then we go to the gym, and on one day we do the back, the next day the legs, the other day the arms and chest. And so we use paragraphs to organize our thinking. So just like the gym strengthens our mind, the academic English is a tool for our thinking. And so many people get intimidated because of fancy grammar, or they feel they're not good enough in English. And all it is, it's a tool to organize your thinking, just like the exercise in the gym. And once you get that, you unlock the door for students to be able to demonstrate these different aspects of analyzing, evaluating, that are part of qualification and curriculum development.
Totally agree with you. Definitely. I'd like to give over to Mr. Falkvang. If you've got any questions for us that you'd like to address, I know I've asked you just to, obviously it's our final exam preparation. If you have some wisdom to share with our students for the upcoming exams.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, I was involved in an organization called the Paragon Generation. And it opened my eyes to the fact that our learners are not learning how to learn. And that's why I'm excited to have Dr. Christopher John aboard in terms of just opening our eyes in terms of academic English. Unfortunately, we couldn't share the screen due to a technical issue. But I've looked at the specific slide around how each one of those levels of Bloom's taxonomy actually does depend on language. So my question to Dr. John is, and one doesn't want to be politically controversial. We always try to avoid that. But our current policy of, for example, teaching learners in isiXhosa, in the Eastern Cape, from grade R to grade 9 or grade 8, and then the guys switching to English at a certain stage. From an academic perspective, is that useful for us as a country? Does it help us as a country to assist, or is that something where we're shooting ourselves in the foot?
I think it is a very political subject, because people have different languages and different identities, and it's important that they are allowed to flourish, particularly with a history of where those languages and cultures and identities have been damaged. So the imperative to have that as part of our education makes perfect sense. But then we have a power of academic English or English, where people who are confident in academic English can get qualifications, and people who are multilingual in their own language and English have better employment possibilities. And that is to do with the economics and the world in which we find ourselves in. And so I think academic English is just one of the tools that students need. So they may write creatively in a first language. I work sometimes with media students, and creative work often has to be in other languages, and creative work and identity are so linked. But the thinking part, the qualification part, happens in English. And so this is why I'm saying it's a set of tools, just like the SWOT thing you use in business. It's a set of tools to organize thinking, to demonstrate those categories of cognitive thinking. And once the student understands that, they then fold academic English into all of the range of languages and different registers that they use as part of their life. And it doesn't mean that it's an assault on their identity or their culture. It's just a bunch of tools. And that's why I say it doesn't have to be this detailed critique of somebody's use of grammar. And English is very versatile. You can construct it in many different ways. It's understanding the structure of thinking, because to get a qualification, you have to demonstrate different levels of thinking. And that's what academic English is. And we don't present it as a tool in that way very often in education. We combine it, and it ends up being an assault on somebody's identity, and people struggle with it, with this identity thing. And we need to move it away from that into being a tool. Rather a long answer, but I hope it makes sense.
Thank you very much for that, Dr. John. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you so much. I just like to see there's a comment from Tammy Lee North here on Facebook. It says, good morning. Do children need to be part of live classes all the time? Can I ask John, could I ask you to answer that, please?
Tammy, yes, Seat Academy provides a blended approach. So part of that live classes, it's not that they're on the whole day. Most days they'll be on for 3 30-minute slots. And by blended learning, what we mean is that a lot of the learning is taking place via pre-recorded video lessons. I'm an accounting and maths, economics and business studies tutor or qualified teacher. And what I found is that if I teach a specific topic, I'm teaching it the same way year after year. So we might as well take that information and put it in a pre-recorded video lesson and for the child to watch that. But the live classes are very important from the perspective of communication, because we are online school. Communication is very important, collaboration and so on. So we do recommend that our learners attend all the live classes, and so that they've got a structure to their day. But it's a combination. It's the best of both worlds, if you want to put it that way. They're only attending about 3 to maybe 4 live online classes, depending on the grade that they're in. And the bulk of the time they're spending on watching the pre-recorded video lessons, doing projects, homework, etc. So I hope that answers your question, Tammy. But in short, we actually do prefer that they attend all the lessons. Thanks, Melissa.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that, John. Paige, I see you very quiet in the corner there. Do you have anything to add, or do you have any questions for us, Dr. Christopher John?
I just wanted to ask, the courses that you offer, from what age groups do you offer them? Is it only for university, adults?
Oh, okay. Thank you. On the teachable.com site, I'm branded as matric writing coach.
Okay.
And so I'm really aiming at grade 11 and 12, and I give them the kind of academic structure that we've just spoken of. So I address a very focused area of academic English skill. And then I offer another course, which is coaching to people repeating matric. And then another one to students jumping into the first year of university, because often students find the jump from matric to university difficult because of the high self-study element and the referencing, and they need more templates for answers. For people repeating matric, often they've got to come to terms with an emotional reaction to their mark, and they've got to get past that to engage in study enthusiastically again. If they feel, if they're feeling their morale is dented by their experience. And then I had some motivational statements on my slides. One was, crack your deal with academic English. And the other is that just as we train our bodies at the gym, we train our minds in academic English. So those were the crack your deal with academic English is the deal grade 11s and 12s have to make. And then the deal that people repeating matric makes is, I've got to crack my deal to emotionally find my way back into studying. And learners going into first year at university have to go, oh, I've got to organize my own study now. They've got to crack that deal. So each level has a kind of emotional deal to crack as well as an academic deal.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. John, I'd like to ask, I don't know if you've got anything else to add. I see yes, I knew you did. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, one of our big focuses, Dr. John, for next year, and all Johns are good guys, is we're looking at grade 10, 11, and 12, because as you might know, four out of every 10 learners that start in grade 1 drop out between grade 10 and grade 12. 1 out of every 10 drop out between grade R and grade 9, apologies. So for everybody that starts in grade 1, about 9 of them make it to grade 10. And I think that's where there's a big shift. And what you're saying is that with the FET phase, we're no longer playing games. You know, and that's why a lot of learners drop out between grade 10 and grade 12. We've got the statistics for that. So we're focusing on 2 big drives next year, which is to try to look at how do we absorb those learners that drop out of school between those grades. And secondly, we are actually looking at how do we improve the matric results and actually have a preparation year for university for those that have not done well in matric. And as we know, the results in matric are not that great. So do you think it's wise for them to focus on completing their whole matric and using these tools of academic English to improve their marks, but at the same time use it as a vehicle to actually prepare them for university?
I think the kids who secure their academic writing skills at university, and normally that arrives in year 2. But if they can secure them and they work on it in year 1, they improve their marks by 15 to 20%, roughly. That's anecdotal discussion with other academics. So if we have kids from matric who have those skills, straight away we've improved their entry levels and their academic performance when they arrive. And that is, I think that's vital. And when I talk to first year students, those who have the skills have got them because their parents are teachers or lecturers. So they've got them at home and they get that detailed coaching. So it's separate from the subject coaching. The difficulty with teachers is that they've got huge pressure to cover curriculum content, and those academic skills are folded into the subject discipline. and therefore the kids never see them separately. And if different markers mark differently, the student learners will write differently for them. I think the kind of study skills you're talking about provide a very secure platform for kids to move forward. But there's another thing which you're doing, which is this blended online learning, which is how education is going to move into the future. And what you're also achieving in your organization, I believe, is a more self-disciplined learner. So they will be, by going through this route of kind of education you provide, they're going to be more self-sufficient and more organized, more study disciplined when they move into higher education. So I think the kind of education opportunity you offer, plus the additional study skills separate from the discipline skills, are essential. I think it's an ideal opportunity for kids to succeed. And absolutely, I think it's so important. We need to do something about those 4 who drop out, 4 out of 10 who drop out in 10, 11, 12, because that is where the career opportunities will grow from. And we know what the unemployment figures are in this country. And for those of us in education, that is the area for us to pay attention to.
Okay, just one last question. Apologies, Melissa, for taking up such a lot of your time. Just one last question. So you're going back to the point of where those learners that have that skill set are learners which I assume, like in my case, my parents were both teachers, as an example. So would you suggest that for us to compensate for that, we have a specific person like Paige that would focus on that for our senior learners? Almost have a separate subject called academic English. I mean, we can do that. It doesn't have to be a examinable subject.
I believe so, because as you yourself have argued here, those cognitive processes are, how do we realize them? We realize them through language skills. How do we realize the fitness? Through exercises in the gym. What is the tool we use? And it is language. And a lot of students who are getting 52, 48% don't know what an 86% piece of writing looks like. They don't see each other's writing. The kids who succeed get the support from, as you've mentioned, from parents, or at university once they get into postgraduate studies. That's the only time you sit down with an individual lecturer who will critically edit your writing in detail. We need it in earlier, and we also need to demystify academic English instead of making it a kind with the fancy words and the strange conventions. There is a part of academia which is designed to exclude others. And we need to go, hang on, let's just decode this and let's open this world. And because our context is different, it's not about a class-based privileged education. We have a different model in South Africa.
Yeah, if I can just interject in here quickly. I think it's so important because if I look at my own personal experiences, the university I attended is the University of Pretoria, and it's compulsory for every first year to take an English subject. And so it is so vitally important that a student learns from grade 10 to 12 when they've got that mature understanding and can take in that extra bit of knowledge to understand English and to understand how to analyze questions, which I think is what this intervention program is also trying to create, is that understanding that academic English is not so scary, that it is not this huge hurdle that you have to overcome, because if you can get through the basics and you have that added support, that foundation is then being laid for you, which you can then take into your university years should they choose to go to university or college. And I think that the intervention program is really something special that CETA tried to implement here, because I think those students really need that added support to feel like, okay, somebody thinks I can do this, which means I can do this. Yeah.
I think you're so right. It's about, and academic English is about structuring thought. It's not about having some slick language skill. And once you understand, oh, it's about structuring thought, and as you said, we open that door to more students, they can succeed. Absolutely.
Thank you for that. There's two questions that I'd like to get to quickly just before we move on, or before anybody else just goes through. Frida Marcus Jason just says, from what grades should Dr. John be teaching or tutoring, or is this a separate extra course should our child have difficulty with English for certain grades? If I can just go ahead and answer that particular one. So Dr. John will be hopefully collaborating with our academy to obviously offer his expertise with regards to preparation in the future. At the moment, he is offering a free exam teachable coaching session on his website, which is for grade 11 and grade 12. So the link is shared in the comment box there that you can have a look at. That is depending on what grade your child is. But I do feel, from our personal opinion, that, the younger the students actually start with this kind of English program, the better it will be for them. So we're hoping to implement this. I know Paige is starting from grade 4 already, so at least we know that they are starting young, they're preparing from a very young age. Then I've got a question, if I could ask Paige perhaps to answer this particular question. Okay, this is from Renee Little. She says, morning all. Do the younger grades get the list of what they need to study for the upcoming exams, or do they need to study everything from term 1 onwards? Paige?
So the nice thing about TEAS is every teacher creates their assessment list, and with that assessment list comes a scope of exactly what to study. I then take that scope, I look at all the material that they've done throughout the year, I create summarized versions of PowerPoints that they can then go and have a look at to recap everything they need for those assessments. So if we're talking from grade 4 to 7, they've got the same assessment calendar, obviously different levels of that work, but it's the same task. So I think their first one coming up is narrative writing. They each have different levels within narrative writing, and their standard gets higher with each grade they go up with. So I teach the basic structure of that, and with each grade, the standard gets a bit higher. So with that, I teach the language and the repertoire that they should be using in those sections. So yes, they do get a detailed study of what to learn, and the extra classes give them that recap that they may have forgotten throughout the terms.
Thank you so much for that, Paige. I'd like to thank, just before I sign off today, I'd like to ask if anybody has any last words of wisdom before we end our session today. Anybody?
I'll just wish the grade 11s and 12s best of luck with their end of year exams.
Thank you so much, Dr. John. Yes, John Fulfane.
From my side, I'd just like to thank Dr. John for coming on board, and thanks, Melissa, for finding Dr. John. I think that it's given us a lot of thought in terms of our goal as SEET Academy is how do we prepare our learners for their future. And I think this gives us a lot of thought in terms of, okay, what do we do? And I think Paige, as the person leading our intervention, is going to be applying a mind to this. And fortunately, as an online school, we have flexibility to even add that as a separate subject in the timetable to ensure that the foundations of learning is really solid. And from my side to our grade 10, 11, and 12s, as well as all our other grades, all the best with your preparation. And I trust that what we're going through today assists you. And the link to Dr. John's website is in the comment section of this particular post. So if you are writing matric, or you know somebody that's writing matric, please share that with him, and all the best. Thank you very much, Melissa. Thanks, Dr. John, and thank you, Paige.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Have a fantastic time. We will be sharing our links for Dr. Christopher John on our Facebook pages individually, as well as with all our staff and our students. Thank you, people. We'll see you guys next week. Bye. John, can you end?
I see that my mic is unmuted. I think we are still live. So I'm
Yes,
not
we
exactly
are.
sure how to end. um,
Our technical issues is becoming
we